the two main important things to remember when you're trying to change pretty much anything about your life or who you are is the role that your identity, your self-identity, your self-image, and also your environment have on you. I'm going to start with environment just because identity builds off of it even further. There's one example that I'm going to use to illustrate both sides of environment, and that is, let's assume you are someone who is out of shape in a household who is out of shape and who doesn't reward being in shape. Now, like I said, there are two things that you want to keep in mind or pay attention to and change potentially in your environment. And so those two things are the people in the environment and also the things in the environment. And so those things are not going to be called things. I'm actually going to start out with this because it's something that I had never heard before, and it's something I took from the book Atomic Habits, which I finished recently. And that is that there are not things in your environment. You should not think about them that way. The way that you should frame the way you think about the things is as relationships. And so I'm going to start out with an example about two people, Mark and Betty. Mark, he works hard every day. He comes home from work, he sees his couch, and he sits down and eats a bowl of ice cream and watches TV. His relationship to the couch is on one side of the arguably good productivity spectrum. Now Betty, she also works very hard, and she comes home, sees her couch, and is excited because after she makes dinner, she's going to sit on her couch and read. Now those two relationships to the couch are very different, and they give essentially very different outcomes 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. Obviously, Mark going to have a little bit of a different health outcome than Betty. He's eating that ice cream every night. As we know, those things compound over time. So, for the main example, I want you to imagine you're back in your unfit household with people who are unfit. In that environment, there are things that you have relationships with. And this could be the cake in the fridge, the cookies in the pantry, the chips on the counter, whatever. And because those things are in your environment, the friction of getting to them is very easy. There's almost no resistance. You pretty much walk into the kitchen, you see the chips, and you can eat them. If you're trying to quit doing something like that, it's a little hard because it's right there. And your old self, your old identity, which I'm going to go over in a second, will just see that and go for it. So the second part of it is the people. And with the people, you've heard, I'm sure, that the quote, it's like, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your future. That's pretty much true. And I've noticed the more I hang out around people who don't have the same goals as me, the harder it is to get progress on my goals. And vice versa. If I'm hanging out around people who care about their health, care about money, care about nurturing really good friendships and family relationships, maybe care about nurturing a good relationship with a woman, then my focus is inevitably changed because what I'm around, my external input all the time is different than if I'm around like friends that are drinking, smoking weed, they're going out and they're just partying instead of like reading or something. And to each their own, like everyone has different goals. Maybe you want to be an alcoholic with no real friends and spend all your money on parties. Like good for you. Like go for it. But personally, I want good relationships, I want good financial health, and I want good physical health and mental health. And I suppose emotional health. But the people are very important. And so back to the unfit household example, those people in the environment, in the immediate environment, honestly are going to kind of hold you back. And it won't hopefully be purposeful. Now, the reason they're going to hold you back is because they have an identity they perceive as yours. So when they see you, you're you, and that's how they see you. And two things. One, if you're trying to change that, people aren't as happy or consciously looking to change you as you are. So they'll treat you the same way, which will cause you likely to have the same reactions, because whatever behavior they displayed to you before was met by an equal reaction from you, whether that's good or bad. And so if they keep giving you that input, you're likely to keep giving your output. And that's going to keep you as the person you don't want to be. And the second more important one is that they're uncomfortable by the changes. So if you're in a household, and if you're sensitive to this kind of language, forgive me, but if you're in a household of fat people, you're probably going to stay fat, no matter how much you want your New Year's resolution. And the reason is because of your relationships with the things in the environment, the low resistance to eating bad foods, the high encouragement from your family to stay in and watch TV and eat snacks instead of go out and hit your run, go to the gym and hit your lift. And not only that, but you're making them uncomfortable by reminding them of who they aren't and who they aren't trying to be. And so when you are trying to make those changes, it's very likely, and like I said, hopefully it's not purposeful, but it's very likely that they're going to pull you down. It's like the crabs in the bucket example, where there are a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one of them tries to crawl out, and all the others trying to crawl out as well end up pulling that crab back in. And so none of the crabs get away because all of the crabs are pulling each other back down. And while this may exist to varying degrees in each of your own specific environments, personally, I found a lot of benefit from leaving old environments every time I was trying to make a new change or bound in my self-development. The biggest example, the most extreme example in my personal life from this is when I was 18, I left my parents' house and I moved 2,300 miles away from Utah to Florida, and I started doing door-to-door sales. And so there are a lot of reasons that this move changed my life, but I'll highlight the key few. One, I was in a new environment with new people. I could be whoever I wanted to be, and no one was any the wiser. If I wanted to, instead of being introverted, be extroverted, no one was there. Like, all they knew was this new extroverted me. So it was easier. Second thing, I was around new people, and these people, most of them were very success-minded, and especially one of them, who I am very grateful to for putting in effort to get me to see the world for what it was and what I myself was capable of through focus, willpower, determination, and discipline. I was able to change a lot of the things about myself. Like, I don't know if this is too much for a YouTube video, but I used to be a very depressed, bummed out individual who didn't think there was anything worth living for and who didn't like life, grumpy in the morning. I mean, I kind of still am, but I have a better outlook on life now. But anyways, I was just a loser, honestly. That's the best way to put it. Like, bad attitude, looked at the negatives, brought up the negatives, made relationships with people that weren't productive, and by that I mean those people weren't productive and I wasn't, but it made it harder for me, obviously, to change that. And obviously that's really important if the people in our environment do shape us inevitably. In the book Atomic Habits, I mean, that book is just phenomenal. If you haven't read it, you should. But it also talks about how there's a need, and pretty much anyone with any kind of psychology knowledge or biology or evolution can tell you this, but there's a need to fit in socially, because that in the past used to mean survival or not survival. And because of that, subconsciously we're always moving towards becoming those people that we're around, because we need to fit in with them in order to have that group safety. So if you're having a hard time changing who you are or what you do or what you're known for, whatever, consider leaving the people in your environment. Doesn't mean you don't have to love them, doesn't mean you have to resent them, doesn't mean you have to hate them. Simply do what's best for you, and then move into a different environment with different things that you can build new relationships with. A new couch that means reading instead of TV and ice cream. A new TV that means, I don't know, hooking up YouTube and watching educational videos instead of playing your Xbox. I don't know. You get the idea though. And I wanted to share that because it has made a significant difference in my life, and I think that it could make a significant difference in everyone's lives. Now, to build off of that, self-image and identity. If you've never read this book, never heard about this book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, you should read it. This book talks all about your self-image, and I found this book also extremely good because I had never specifically thought about how I viewed myself, how I spoke to myself, and what real impact that had on doing the things I want to do and getting the changes in myself that I wanted to get. One thing for me is I always had a hard time. I never had a hard time getting a lot of dates and girls and all of that stuff, but I had a hard time finding women who I felt were worth me investing in. And if you are a man or a woman on self-improvement who is continually trying to improve their self-worth, both internally and externally, intrinsically and extrinsically, you know how hard it is to date because most people nowadays got major issues and it's hard. But I realized that part of that was in my self-image and how I viewed myself, what I viewed I was worthy of. And so I would get all these girls and I was like, yeah, they're really pretty. You know, some of them were nice, but they always had something where it's just unacceptable. Like I had too high of a standard for myself, and that is like pretty much if you have a high standard for yourself and you stick to it, you should hold others to high standards. And these girls weren't holding up to my standards, to be quite frank. And I realized it was myself. It was me. I thought back about all the girls I dated, all the girls that had pursued me, and I realized that I had had a few really great girls, like phenomenal, throughout the years, chasing me, and I hadn't viewed myself as good enough for them, and so therefore I had cut them off. Now, I think everything happens for a reason. I'm dating a great girl right now, and she's amazing, and you know, I wouldn't have met her if I had ended up with one of those other girls, and none of them were quite to the standard of the girlfriend I have now, so that's also good. But that's a personal example of what your self-image can do for you. Now, in pertaining to good habits, success, all these things, you're not going to get what you don't think you deserve. And I just outlined that with my dating example. I knew I deserved pretty women, but I didn't think I deserved a good woman. And so I got lots of pretty women that weren't good. And for some guys, that's great because they just want to be a player and play that game. And it can be fun, but I just don't think it's very productive. Because you want to build, well, in my opinion, you want to build something with someone, but I'm totally off track now. So self-image, pertaining and relating to your environment. Let's go back to that bad household you were in. If you're in that fat household, let's just put it that way, it's going to be really hard because of the environmental factors, your relationships to the things in the environment, the people in the environment. It's going to be hard to change. However, your self-image and your identity, your self-proclaimed identity, which, by the way, you can cast votes to, and I'll go over that in a second, you can use that to still escape who you are in that environment. Excuse me. So, for example, with casting votes, every choice you make moves your needle, and your needle is here. Every choice that's good moves it this way. Another good choice this way. Every bad choice this way. And so no matter what you do, your needle is moving, and that is steering your life in whatever direction you are trying to go. And because of this, if you can consistently, based on a new identity you're trying to appropriate, let's say, okay, I am not an overweight person, I am a healthy person, and this is why. This is why I'm proving to myself that I'm healthy. Today, instead of cake, I ate 3 apples or an apple or whatever. Today, instead of sitting on the couch and watching TV, I went on a run. Today, instead of insert other fat habit here, went to the gym. Those are votes. That is literal proof that you are who you say you are. So your needle is moving in a good direction based on those decisions, based on those votes. So you can do it in a poor environment. But if you want to skyrocket your success or the changes you're trying to bring about, you need to control your environment. So you need to get out of that house, go move in with a bunch of guys at the gym, and you're the least fit one of them. Guarantee you in 6 months you will look freaking good. And maybe that's not what you want. But I'm using this as an example. You can apply all of this to anything. This is just the easiest one for people to imagine, and I feel like it's very relatable for a lot of people. So you got to cast those votes. You got to prove to yourself that you are the identity you're trying to become. And what is even really helpful that I would recommend is write out who you want to be. I want to be fit. I want to be kind. I want to be intelligent. I want to be generous. And then every time you're faced with a choice, would my best self do this? Cast your vote. Yes or no? Okay, yes, I'll do it. Now, if you go the opposite, it's really bad for your self-image because now you're going to beat yourself up. Inevitably, it happens. James Clear says it can derail you really fast because you're like, oh, I missed yesterday, so I'll just miss today, but I'll go tomorrow and I'll do extra. And I'm guilty of this. Like that calendar back there is what I'm tracking my habits on currently. Just as an experiment after I read Atomic Habits, and I've missed some days and I've tried to make up for those days, and it's shameful. Like, the best you can do is just get back on it as soon as you can, and he talks about that in the book too. But make the choice that your best self would make. Align those words with every decision you make. Is this a kind, generous choice? Is this a fit choice? Is this a smart choice? And then make it. I mean, I feel like everyone thinks that way, and if not, like, welcome. Now you can think that way. But this is actually the second time I filmed this video, and I hope I think I went over that in the beginning, like my computer deleted the first one, which is so annoying. But if you enjoyed it, I would ask you the favor of sharing this with a friend, mainly because that will help boost this video to more people like you. And the reason I'm saying if you found the video valuable is because if you liked it, YouTube knows other people like you, and they'll kick this video out to them, and those people will have the chance to hear what I've told you if you liked it and found it valuable. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one.